Everyone, welcome back to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I'm James Pendleton. I'm joined today by Dave from Talking Wolves. How are we, Dave?
I'm very well, thank you, mate. Thank you for having me. Get my teeth in.
Not a problem, not a problem. Obviously, we're just here to talk about the upcoming game. Obviously, Wolves against Everton on Saturday, a massive game in Everton's season. I think, to be fair, maybe people would have thought a few months ago there could have been a really big game for both of us, but obviously, it doesn't really matter for Wolves, I suppose. Obviously, looking ahead to next season, whereas Everton is still very much a crucial game, so very much worth talking about. We'll obviously just dive straight in now. So, we want to talk about Wolves first. What do you think about Wolves this season? Because even though obviously you are safe now, it's only been the last maybe couple of weeks you could really properly relax, I suppose.
Yeah, it's only been just over a week. We've been mathematically safe, but yeah, it's been a long season. It's been the last few weeks. I've just wanted the season to end. To be honest, mate, it's been a really long campaign and started off really badly under Bruno Lage. Took us a while. Obviously, we let him go. Took the club a while to get a manager in place, and Lopetegui then sort of got the job right before the World Cup break. So it was good timing for us, really. I know there's a couple of clubs, possibly Everton themselves, that possibly wish they acted a little bit sooner on sacking their managers as well.
Mhm.
But yeah, things have definitely improved under Lopetegui. There's still things to get better and work on for next season. Our away form has been atrocious. All year we've only won 2 games away from home. But the main thing he has done is make Molineux pretty much a fortress. So much better for us at home, winning many, much more games. But be interesting to see how we go into the game on Saturday, because Everton have got a lot more to play for than us. And even last week against Manchester United, I know it was away from home, but just seemed like the players knew that they were safe. They didn't really put a sweat on, really. So it'll be interesting to see how they start on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's always one of them, isn't it? Because I think people look at this game and there'll be obviously lots of Everton fans who are saying, "Oh, Wolves are going to be on the beach and not really going to be that bothered." But by the same token, there's going to be players there who are going to want to still be there next season. I know obviously a few
Exactly.
players are going to be leaving Wolves. There's going to be some players who are going to want to stake a claim. And if a manager thinks, well, you're not going to be bothered when the season's over, then why are you going to be caring when the season's sort of still on? So it's definitely not as
Yeah,
black and white as that. Obviously, I think I'd probably prefer to be playing a team who've got enough to play for rather than like
of
against
course.
Leicester
Yeah.
the other week when it was a really tough game. But it's still not easy. It's nothing's in black and white, as I say. Definitely right on Everton. Should have been sacking their manager a lot earlier, and they should have used that World Cup break. But I mean, it'll be interesting to see what you think. But it's interesting because we went to the World Cup break and then we came back and played Wolves obviously on Boxing Day. Um, I was at the game and it was horrible, really. I don't know, were you at Goodison that day or?
I wasn't there. I obviously watched it on the TV, that game, but obviously that was a massive win for us because we were down there struggling. We were desperate for anything that we could get, and we've got a half decent record against Lampard. To be fair, not so much against Sean Dyche, which you'll be happy to hear, but yeah, that was a massive win for us, really, right at the death.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, like you've just said, Lampard there. I think there and then Everton fans are probably wondering why he wasn't sacked a lot earlier.
Well, yeah, I mean, we played Bournemouth away, which, I mean, just before the World Cup break, I think that was our last game for the World Cup break. We played Bournemouth in the league and in the cup back to back over the space of four
Yeah,
days, and we lost both games quite heavily. That he should have gone then, obviously, but it's interesting because I remember going to Goodison that day, and I didn't even know Wolves were bottom of the league. To be honest, I knew they were having a poor start, and obviously Large had been there. You had the name of the fella escaping. Someone came in caretaker, didn't he, for a
Stevie
bit?
Davis. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
it. Yeah, of course. So he was in there. Then Lopetegui didn't come in. Davis carried on, and then Lopetegui did eventually accept it, didn't he? And obviously,
mm,
he had the whole World Cup break, and then Wolves came, and it wasn't a great game. I think Wolves probably deserved it on the day. We were really, really poor. Very similar to the Southampton game, I suppose. Took the lead and we got beat. But I don't know. I mean, at the time, I said I didn't even know Wolves were bottom. As soon as Lopetegui came in, I didn't think Wolves were going to be in any trouble, to be honest with you. But obviously, I don't know what you think about that. Did you think that was you should have been? I know it's harder for you to say, but I think from the outside looking in, I was like, oh, Wolves are safe now. Wolves will be fine. Was it that
yeah.
confident at the time? Do you think? Or
Um, it did. I think we needed someone experienced, but it took me a long time before I was convinced that we were definitely going to stay up. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way to Lopetegui. I just thought that he'd been given such a bad hand that I thought we were going to really, it was going to take something very special for him to keep us up. We were bottom of the league, 4 points adrift, really struggling to score. I mean, we're still not free scoring now, but he's managed to sort of grind out results a lot more. But like I said earlier, thankfully, he's almost made Molineux a fortress. Typically, the only two games I think we've lost off the top of my head under him at Molineux were against Leeds and Bournemouth, which are two teams you probably expect us to at least get something out of those games. So, but since he's come in at home, we've beaten Liverpool, we've beaten Chelsea, we've beaten Spurs. We've got some really big wins. So, yeah, I'm probably maybe it did take until about mid-Feb, March. And then I was thinking, yeah, we'll be absolutely sound, to be honest. But it was just every time we were taking two steps, like a step forward and beating or getting points against Spurs, we then drop points against someone like Forest, for argument's sake.
Mm-hmm.
So it took us a while, but yeah, I think we made the right decision in getting someone that's a lot more experienced.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I thought he's a really good appointment, to be fair. I mean, it's interesting, obviously, with Large because I don't know. I think it got to a point with Large where I didn't think he could really take the team much further forward. And then
Mm.
obviously, when it looked like Lopetegui wasn't going to come in he had his own personal reasons, didn't he? I think was his dad wasn't very well or
Yeah, yeah,
something
yeah.
similar. Yeah. So when that happened, I'm thinking, oh, maybe this could get a bit hairy, like obviously, because then if you make the wrong appointment,
Mm.
it's that's but fair play. Obviously, stuck with it. And obviously, I hope he's obviously all right, and obviously he's taken the job and he's done really well. What have your thoughts been on Everton this season? Because while it's we've had similar seasons in terms of both been obviously down there, but I think the mood at Everton's been much worse in terms of we did it far later than we probably should have. What have your thoughts been on Everton this season?
The thing with Everton, and I think you guys will probably all agree as well, it's just that the last couple of years you've always seemed to be down here and sort of not necessarily struggling as much as you are this season, but I think and as you'll know a lot more than me, there's a massive football club there, massive fan base, and it's just been run, whether that's sort of right at the top or with transfers or whatever, it's been run quite badly. So I think that Everton have got some very good footballers, and I think they've got a good team there, but it just needs the right person, whether that is Sean Dyche or whether that's going to be somebody else in the future, just to sort of balance that squad out and get them moving up the Premier League again. I think you're good enough, and you should stay in the Premier League. But I'm sure for your sakes that you won't want to be in this sort of mess again. So it'll be interesting. And now, obviously, you've got Connor Cody on loan from us at the moment. I don't know whether that'll turn into a permanent move. There's people like Kevin Felwell, who's I think your director of football, that was at Wolves for a very long time as
Yeah.
well. So there's a lot of sort of crossovers between the two clubs, but yeah, I think Everton fans, feel that they'll deserve better, and things just need to get sorted out from next season onwards.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to be fair, I don't think a lot of fans thought we'd be in this situation again
Yeah,
because last season, and I know obviously Wolves have had a couple of not since they've come back up, but certainly the sort of late noughties when you were in the Premier League,
yeah,
obviously a couple of relegations, perhaps a really dramatic final day. I seem to remember.
yeah,
I think Birmingham went down that day, which I'm sure you probably enjoyed. But
yeah.
I but again, obviously since then it hasn't been like that. So absolutely it's been a disaster really from our point of view. Obviously you touched on Sean Dyche earlier. I hadn't really considered whether his record against Wolves was particularly good or bad. To be fair, what are your thoughts on him since he's come in at Everton?
Yeah, I mean, it was a interesting appointment because I think there were a lot of clubs always linked with him, and there were teams that are always every time a manager got sacked in the Premier League, I think his name was always going to have been mentioned whilst he didn't have a job. Obviously with Everton, if he keeps them up, it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, is he contracted beyond this season or just till the end of the
Yeah,
season?
I think it's maybe till end the next season. Maybe it's
Right,
definitely
okay.
beyond this summer though.
So
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how he copes because you would assume at Everton he's going to have a slightly bigger budget than what he had at Burnley. Be interested to see whether he felt he was restricted at Burnley with the players that he was getting. He was always well known for almost playing this sort of route one or long ball football. So it'll be interesting to see if he does adapt that over time whilst at Everton. But like I said, historically against for Wolves against Dyche, we've always really, really struggled. I'm not going to say we've lost every game because since we've come up, we did get a couple of wins against Burnley, but sort of in the later stages of his career at Burnley, during the COVID season and the year after that, which was last season, we really, really struggled. So, be intrigued to see obviously how we sort of set up and how we react to him and his Everton team on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do recall a couple of those games you mentioned. I mean, Burnley did get some good results, to be fair, during that COVID time, obviously. So going back to Wolves, I mean, what do you think has sort of gone wrong for Wolves this season? Because I think there was a big shift, wasn't there, in the summer because you played a certain way for a number of years,
Mm-hmm.
large, and tried to change that. I think obviously some players came through the door, didn't really work. Obviously, Sasa Kalajic came in, he got injured, didn't he? He had no strikers. Then obviously Jimenez hasn't been the same.
Yeah.
Costa's obviously, I'm sure has been helpful, but he's obviously not the player he once was. But what do you think's
Mm-hmm.
gone wrong for Wolves this season?
I think you've pretty much touched on a lot of it there. I think Bruno Lage um, almost tried to change too much too quickly. And I don't want to put all the blame on Bruno Lage because I'm sure people higher up in the club would have made some of these decisions as well. But it got to a point sort of just after the middle point of last season where, I think it was the start of Feb, January window just closed and Bruno Lage had a sort of fifth in the Premier League and actually looking at potential Champions League football. We didn't invest at all in the squad in that January and we had a couple of poor results go against us, and we just lost all confidence. And then we just went massively downhill and ended up finishing, I think, sort of mid-table. So yeah, he got rid of too many big characters. John Ruddy's contract was up, and they let him go. Although he wasn't playing, he was quite a big character, in the changing room. Romain Saiss as well. His contract was up, let him go. Went to Besiktas, but he'd been at the club for sort of 5 or 6 years. Connor Cody, obviously club captain. Bruno Lage wanted to change to a back four, and obviously Connor Cody, he felt couldn't play in that system and was let go as well. So you've lost three big characters there, and the rest of the squad didn't really have much personality, let's say. There are certain players like Ruben Neves, obviously, is taken on the captain role and he's very vocal, but the team just had no confidence under Bruno Lage. They weren't fit enough. There was no real structure, and Lopetegui's come in and changed all of that. He commented on the fitness from day one. There were certain players like Jimenez who was injured for the majority of the season, but wanted to try and get fit for the Mexico World Cup squad. So I didn't have Wolves. Wolves really wanted him to come back, and Jimenez just wasn't interested. So Lopetegui mentioned that and had his card marked from day one. And in January, that's what he looked at. We signed a number of players that had played Premier League football before: Craig Dawson, Mario Lemina, Pablo Sarabia, who had played top level football for a number of years. So he just added that experience that Wolves got rid of last summer, and thankfully, it's paid off, and Wolves will stay in the Premier League next season. But there were mistakes made last summer that Wolves have got to make sure they don't make again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it was a really good window. I mean, we didn't sign anybody at all. So I think they got to know a big sort of contrast. You can look at the way this sort
Yeah.
of scenario has been handled. But who would you say has been Wolves' best player this season? I think you might have already mentioned him just then, but who's been the sort of standout man for Wolves?
Yeah, Ruben Neves is obviously one of the top players, especially sort of the lower down in the Premier League, and he's got just over 12 months left on his deal, so it's a massive summer for him. I'm sure Wolves will be expecting some inquiries for him, but if there's going to be a fee that matches Wolves' valuation, we'll have to wait and see. But he's been great, but I don't think it would be all doom and gloom if he did leave Wolves. He's a top player, but we had a little phase a couple of weeks ago where he was suspended, and we played some of our best football with him out the squad, believe it or not. So I don't think like I said, I don't think it'll be all doom and gloom if he does leave. But he's been a top player. But there's been players that have improved massively. I think Diego Costa's not scoring the goals, but been a big part of like linking up the attack together. Mateus Cunha in behind him as well. So there's plenty of players that have got lots of talent in this Wolves squad. It's just trying to get the best out of them, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I was expecting to say Neves. I mean, I've been impressed with Dawson as well when I've seen
Yeah,
Wolves
been
play. I know
brilliant.
West Ham fans loved him. Deitch really wanted to sign him when he was at West Brom, I think. And I remember I hadn't really seen him play much. I think Burnley bid must have been about 10, 12 million for him.
Mm.
So think looking back, that obviously would have been a really good move for him. And obviously Cunha, we were heavily linked with, but he appeared to obviously choose Wolves, and he's been impressive, as you say. Who sort of disappointed you the most then for Wolves? I know obviously Gonçalo Guedes, he's left on loan,
Yeah,
hasn't he? He's gone to the Benfica, is it? He's a
yeah.
bit of disappointment for you.
Yeah, Guedes is definitely one with the amount of money that we spent on him. I think a lot of Wolves fans were excited when he came in as well. It's a move that happened quite quickly, and I think it was linked on like the Saturday, and by the sort of the Monday, Tuesday, I think it was very similar time to when Cody left. I'm sure it was the same sort of
Yeah,
few
that seems
days,
to
to be
ring a bell.
fair.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, he was a massive disappointment, and one of those players that Lopetegui said in January, "You don't want to be here. I'm not having sort of bad smells in the changing room. Basically, I'm going to let you go." So Wolves, I think, are going to have to take a hit on him. If they do look to sell him in the summer, they definitely aren't going to get what they paid for him. Nunes has been frustrating as well. I'm not going to say he's been a huge disappointment, but when we signed him, I was really expecting a world beater. And I don't know, we playing a lot as a central midfielder for Sporting. We've played him out wide quite a lot. So I don't know if him being played out of position is holding him back slightly. But for every good performance from Nunes, you're getting 5 or 6 bang average or bad performances. So we've just got to see a little bit more consistency. And I'm hoping that next season he can kick on. He would have been in England for over a year then. He should be settled by then. And hopefully we see some much better performances.
Yeah, I think Nunes is someone who's. I mean, he was excellent at Sporting. Obviously, wasn't he back in
Yeah.
Portugal? So I was a little bit disappointed to see his sort of how he's translated that forward to here. Obviously, hasn't gone as well as you say. So about the match itself, then, who would you say is Wolves' sort of danger man? Who's the player Everton should be looking out for? And then obviously vice versa, who would you be sort of wary of the Everton players?
Yeah, I think it really depends who starts out wide. I think, last couple of weeks it's been Neto and Nunes, and both players have had good games over the last few weeks, and both players have had bad games. I think the sort of the spine of the team is where obviously Wolves, have quality. Like you mentioned already, Craig Dawson has been a very good player and also quite a bit of a threat from set pieces. Mario Lemina next to Neves, you would assume will play. He's been a very good signing since January, and Cunha and Costa next to each other just seem to bounce off each other, always on the same sort of wavelength. So if we start off quite brightly, which we have done in recent home games, I think especially Cunha and Costa are going to be a big part of any attacks. And then from an Everton point of view, I think the midfield battle will be interesting. Got some very physical midfielders. So against Lemina and Neves, it'll be quite an intriguing battle. And Calvert-Lewin as well. I know he's probably not been as present and not as free scoring as Everton fans would have hoped, but I think he's always got that little bit of quality in front of goal, which can worry teams. And Dwight McNeil's a player that I've always rated. Again, blows hot and cold, probably a little bit too much. But again, over the last couple of weeks, especially that game against Brighton, I think, he was really decent in front of goal. So a player that obviously Sean Dyche really likes during his time at Burnley as well. So yeah, we'll see what he can do on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you mentioned obviously Lamina there, who's someone we were also linked to a couple of years ago. I've always quite liked him, to be fair, and I saw a really nice video of him actually the other week with a couple of Wolves fans. That was really nice. He seems like
Yeah.
a good guy, so I'm glad he's having a good season. What who do you think is going to line up then for Wolves? 'Cause I saw Daniel Bentley played against United the other day. Seems to make some good saves. Was Sarr injured or is he out of favour or?
No, so the Dan Bentley one was quite surprising. I think for Wolves fans have almost called for it as such just to see what Bentley's about. Sarr's had a couple of, not just recently, but throughout the season. Again, another player which has just lacked consistency. He's had some really poor moments. Lopetegui obviously likes to try and play out from the back, and in regards to Sarr with the ball at his feet, he's just not very good. So yeah, Bentley got a shout, and like you said, had a decent performance against United. So it'll be interesting to see if he keeps his place for the game against Everton. But in terms of the lineup, it's going to be difficult because I think there's a lot of players there where this could be their final game at Molineux. I could pick out 5 or 6 players, which I wouldn't be surprised to see leave in the summer. Obviously, not all of them are going to get minutes, I don't think. But Johnny, the fullback, Jimenez, Pedence, Adama Traore, João Moutinho. There's a lot of players there, and although Lopetegui would obviously love to give them minutes, they're not all going to get the opportunity. So I think he'll try and start a very similar team to what we've seen over the last couple of weeks. Um, but we'll see cameos, 10, 15, 20-minute cameos. I'm sure Adama, Jimenez, and Matinho for sure. I would say so.
Yeah.
But the rest of the team, I think he'll try and keep as close as he can to the last couple of weeks of games.
Yeah, I mean that's another sort of interesting thing about obviously when it is the end of the season and you can opt to kind of play for you do see teams being rotated a lot, and obviously
Yeah.
players who are leaving the club and stuff getting their sort of final goodbyes and what have you. It's obviously something to look at. Just finally on the game, Dave, what would you say the score is going to be? Because the last one of these I did was Brighton. I spent the whole 40 minutes talking about how good Brighton were, and we absolutely battered them. So, I don't think anyone would have said a 5-1. I think I said we used to get beat 3-1. So, what do you think the score is going to be on Saturday?
I I think Everton will probably be up for this a lot more than what Wolves are. I would probably say a 1-1 draw, but it wouldn't surprise me if Everton nicked it. Like I said earlier, Dyche just seems to have a knack of getting the better of Wolves, really. So we'll have to wait and see. But it wouldn't surprise me if you guys nicked it. I hope I'm wrong, but again, for your sake, if you can get something to keep you in the Premier League, then so be it. But I think it'll be a close game either way.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because obviously I'd never been in a situation before until last season where it mattered up until the very last home game.
Yeah.
But the season before that, the COVID season, we played Bournemouth on the last day, and they needed the Beatles to stay up, and it was weird because it didn't matter to us at all. Bournemouth won, I think, 3-1, but they still didn't stay up because I think Villa got a point at West Ham, or they beat West Ham or something, didn't they? So Bournemouth didn't stay up in the end, but it was really strange watching one team really going for it, and then watching another team who going for the motions a little
Forward.
bit, obviously.
Yeah.
And it was a similar situation because we had a manager we all really liked, an Ancelotti, a manager we wanted to build under. So it's going to be interesting. So we will see what happens. Just finally, we always like to end on a random question. And today we're asking, what is your go-to takeaway order, but on a match day? So I think we've been recently asking just normal takeaways, but he's
On a match day.
specified match day today.
So like after a game, or
I mean, to be fair, I've not had a pre-match takeaway
take
since before COVID. To be fair, yeah, I've not had me pre-match, so either or
uh,
really. I think normally I'd get a pre-match, but I haven't done that after a few years. It's been probably post-match normally.
yeah. So to be fair, who did we beat the other day? After we beat Villa, I think a couple of weeks ago, I had a Chinese.
Right.
Uh, I have a very basic Chinese of like a chow mein, salt and pepper chips, and very straightforward. But I'm easy. I'll have anything. I've not had a takeaway pizza for a while, but Chinese, Indian, anything like that, I'm pretty easy to be fair. But yeah, normally it tastes a lot better after a win anyway.
Yeah, I think a celebratory Chinese always goes down really well.
Yeah.
I think it was COVID when we beat Liverpool at Anfield. And I think that celebratory Domino's really hit the spotlight. I don't think I've had a better one, to be fair. But very good, very good. I'm all over that, Dave. So nice one for that. And
No, cheers, man.
obviously, I'd say good luck for the weekend, but it doesn't really matter. So I
You
think
guys need it more, don't you? Yeah.
absolutely. So yes, nice one for coming on, and thank you all very much for watching. That has been Toffee Blues is opposition view. Obviously, if you're new around here, please make sure to subscribe and let us know your thoughts on the game. But until next time, thank you very much.